Hello everyone. On this occasion, I would like to present my final assignment on academic speaking course. It is the final assignment test, and in this video, I will tell you about some information and some discussion about using storytelling for EFL language acquisition learning. And this is the overview of our talk today. The first one is I will tell you about introduction. The second one is definition of storytelling. The third one is the advantages of storytelling, and the fourth one is tips for using storytelling in English learning, and the last part is I will give you some conclusion. Okay, before we start to be more focused discussion, let me tell you about some introduction. Empirical evidence showed that every information we get is in the form of the story. All we think, all we call, and we can turn it into the memory, and we turn out true story. One of the alternative way to build and to recall and to turn out the story is we can use literature, and one kind of literature is story. Story in our brain can activate neural coupling or called mirror neurons in brain, and through story the brain will recognize and have some pattern with some story, and the story also can evoke our emotion and release dopamine to remember the story. And as you know that unquantified website also mentioned that when we hear or read story, two processes are happening. The first one is our brain will light up and increases 5 times faster, and we can processing our emotional reaction, which is related to the empathy, and through story as emotion, learners can think individually and make their own interpretation. In these sections, I will tell you about definition of storytelling. Berner explains that stories naturally attract student attention, encourage imagination, and foster emotional involvement, which can make the learning process more meaningful and enjoyable. And this level is higher to the engagement and motivation plays an important role in enhancing students' speaking skill. Berners, 1991, argues that stories have a natural ability to capture students' attention because they present information in a narrative form that is familiar and interesting to learners. Through storytelling, students are encouraged to use their imagination, visualize events, and connect emotionally with characters and situations. This emotional involvement makes the learning experience more meaningful and enjoyable, as learners are not simply memorizing language forms but engaging with content that feels and real and relevant. As a result, students become motivated and actively involved in the learning process, and this can increase engagement and motivation, create a supportive environment for language practice, particularly in speaking activities, where learners feel more confident to express their ideas, participate in discussion, and communicate orally. And consequently, storytelling contributes significantly to the development of learners' speaking skill. This is the advantage of storytelling. The first one is storytelling helps learners acquire language and expand their vocabulary. Storytelling supports language acquisition and vocabulary development by providing learners with meaningful and contextual language input. When students read, listen, or actively participate in storytelling activities, they are exposed to a wide range of language structures, expression, and vocabulary used in natural contexts. The second one is storytelling enhanced learners' understanding of narrative structure and organization. Storytelling helps learners understand narrative, which are essential for effective language speaking skill. Through regular engagement with stories, students become familiar with key stories such as setting, characters, plot, and conflict. And this familiarity enables learners to organize their ideas more clearly when speaking. As a result, they are better able to present their thought in a coherent and logical sequence, which improve the clarity and effectiveness of their speaking communication. The third one is through storytelling, learners develop greater cultural understanding and empathy. Storytelling promotes cultural awareness and empathy by exposing learners to stories from diverse cultural backgrounds. Through these stories, students gain insight from different perspectives, values, and life experience, and this can increase understanding, helps learners develop empathy and respect for cultural differences. As a result, students become more capable of communicating appropriately and effectively with people from various linguistic and cultural backgrounds, which supports the development of inclusive and effective speaking skill. And storytelling is activity to encourage critical thinking and analysis. Through this process, learners practice organizing their ideas and forming opinions. This analytical engagement helps students to express their thought more clearly and confidently in spoken language, so it can encourage their critical thinking and analysis. And here are some tips for using storytelling in English language. The first one is the teacher can tell short story. Short story allows teachers to model correct pronunciation, intonation, and language use while capturing student interest. The second one is we can use picture stories. It can help learners understand the story more easily and by providing visual support, and which is especially useful for lower level student. The third one is asking students to retell story. It can encourage them to practice speaking, organize ideas, and and use for a newly learned vocabulary and expression. And additionally, encouraging students to create their own stories promote creativity and critical thinking. Together, these storytelling strategies create a meaningful and interactive learning environment that support the development of student speaking skill. And when using storytelling in English language classroom, teachers should consider several important strategies to ensure that the learning is effective. The first one is the teacher choose suitable for student level and interest. The second one is the teacher can use picture, videos, or gestures to support understanding. And the third one is we can introduce key vocabulary before telling a story. And and then we can encourage students to participate and speak freely, and and then we can focus on communication, not grammar perfection, so it train their speaking skill, not only on grammar perfection. And the last one is we can ask students to retell and or create their own story. And here is the conclusion for today's discussion. This is There is some quotes from Flannery O'Connor. A story is a way to say something that can't be said any other way. This statement emphasized the unique power of storytelling as a form of communication. Stories allow speakers to express complex ideas, emotion, and experiences that may be difficult to convey through direct explanation or factual language. Through characters, events, and narratives, meaning is communicated indirectly and yet more deeply and memorably. And in the context of language learning, this highlights how storytelling enables learners to express thought and feelings more naturally and meaningfully, and it can support the development of effective speaking skill. That's all from me. Thank you for your great attention. See you next time. Bye bye.